Donna Proctor has been around a long time and it seems she gets better with age. When most swimmers have hung up their water wings, Donna soldiers on with great success. Donna was a member of the Australian team that competed in the World Championships in Perth, broke a couple of Australian records, went to Canada to once again represent, this time in the Pan Pacific Championships, and was also inducted into the Australian Institute of Sport Hall of Fame. And still in the water, Byron Bay's Michelle Donoghue also had a big year on the international circuit. Against the best in the world, Michelle won the 1991 BHP Surfest Tour event in Newcastle, was second in the Bells Beach Classic in Victoria, and also appeared in 3 other finals on the World Tour. Michelle is currently ranked number 5 on the tour. Donna Proctor and Michelle Donoghue, just 2 of the finalists in Friday night's NBN St George Sports Star of the Year at 9:30.
This week's camp involved 140 volleyballers chosen from an original field of more than 1,000. Aged from under 15 to 21, they came from all over the state to face the scrutiny of more than 20 coaches, including a former Chinese Olympic coach.
We're now at the stage where we've got the cream, we've got the best junior players in the state here, and now we're looking how they combine as players in a team situation, how well they can carry out various tactical and technical exercises.
Selectors say they particularly looked for teamwork among the players and rate several locals among some of the best.
From Newcastle, we've got Mark Brady and Damien Klassen, who are outstanding players. Port Macquarie also has some excellent volleyball players, a number of very good junior players, and also some very good under-17 boys.
Peter Epov says it's getting tougher to choose teams every year, with volleyball's popularity in Australia at an all-time high. 13% of the state's population now plays the sport, a figure Peter Epov attributes to aggressive marketing and increased Olympic exposure.
Right throughout the world, volleyball is now a major sport. There's some 500 million people who play the game and over 180 million registered players. Australia is probably the last country to be conquered by the sport. Volleyball's been a very popular Olympic sport. Now we have beach volleyball, which is growing, and what we're trying to do is take the sport to the people.
Preparing for the National Championships has been a tough grind for the 4 boys. Early morning pool workouts 5 to 6 days a week, plus 3 afternoon surf sessions. It's demanding, but such is the nature of the sport. Competition involves Ironman, surf, swim and board events.
You've got to be multidisciplined. You've got to be able to run, you've got to be able to swim, you've got to be able to have quite the ability to have explosive energy.
For 2 of the boys, it's their first time in the state team, but for all 4, it's the first time under a new format. The championship is now a teams rather than individual event, plus there's a national training camp.
The other states, being latecomers to the surf lifesaving movement, haven't had the skills development programs that New South Wales and Queensland have enjoyed.
Training at Anglesea in Victoria starts next Tuesday, with the championships on January 26.
From Lismore, Dean Larson would love to emulate the feats of the great white shark, Roger Davis and others, and many believe he has the talent to do so. Dean accepted a part-time scholarship to the University of Houston, and in his first 2 appearances he won the Texas Collegiate Championship from 80 pros, and followed that with a win in the Exxon Pro-Am, beating 80 professionals including his coach and 45 amateurs, and is now on a full-time scholarship. Rachel McQuillan continues to prosper on the international stage, another semi-final appearance in the Queensland Open, and again making the 4th round of the Australian Open, the first of the Grand Slam events. Rachel equalled that achievement with a 4th round showing in the French Open at Roland Garros. Rachel finished the year the highest ranked Australian at 27. Sean Crichton is right on the pace for Barcelona. In the World Student Games at Sheffield, England, Sean left his opponents in his wake as he streaked away to win the 3,000 metre steeplechase. From there, the lad from Armidale represented his country at the World Titles in Japan, and Sean has already run a qualifying time for the Olympics, all but ensuring him a place on the plane to Spain. Another 3 great sports people in our NBN St George Sports Star of the Year award this Friday night at 9:30.
Concerned by the current state of the nation's economy, members of the Australian Community Movement organised a conference to discuss the feasibility of forming an alternative major political party. Simultaneous conferences are also underway in Perth and Renmark, all designed to gauge public attitudes.
Input from the community, as wide as possible input from the community, to genuinely look at creating policy that represents community demands.
Mr Provis says the aim is to form a coalition of minor groups in time for the next federal election. This coalition would consist of independents and registered political parties such as the Victorian CIR Alliance, Grey Power and the Queensland-based Confederate Action Party. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The Lakelands tennis courts lay idle today as it was all work, no play for more than half of the suburb's 120 families keen to clean up their environment. They banded together to do the work they say Lake Macquarie City Council should have done.
It's actually the council's job to keep the grounds and the surrounding area clean. The council have already been here and done some work, but we believe that they could certainly do more around here.
The Lakelands Community Association hopes to meet with officers soon to push for council to help clean up the areas. Lake Mayor Doug Carley says he wasn't aware of the residents' grievances, but will meet with them next week if they contact him.
Byron Bay trailed overnight leader Coogin by 13 points going into today's final round of the competition, but they didn't put a foot or flipper wrong all day, taking out the overall title with 163.5 points, relegating Coogin to second on 142.5, Woolgoolga was third with 94.5 and Coffs Harbour was fourth with 87 points. Individually, Port Macquarie's 16-year-old dynamo Steve Pullen won 3 gold, a silver and a bronze medal, including the Open and Junior Ironman in the space of 45 minutes. But the surf lifesaver of the championships was 17-year-old Patria Thomas. Patria won the Diamond Lady, Open Belt, Open and Under 18 surf race, 4 golds in all. South Coast Club Mollybook were 2 strong in the open boat. The 7th Taree Aquatic Triathlon was held today as part of the festival, and in the swim link the change of tide really played havoc with the field, some not making the cut-off. Dave Williams led after the 1.5k swim, but he was being pressed by Mark Lees and Nick Burnett. Queenslander Lees rode the 40-kilometre cycle leg superbly and opened up a big gap. He powered home in the 10k run to win by 3 minutes from Williams and Burnett. Sydney's Leonie Denning dominated the women's section of the triathlon, triumphing in a time of 2 hours, 29.47 minutes. The 1992 Deepwater Cup attracted a strong field, with the 2 top weights Protester and Foes of the Ghost expected to be the ones to beat. Plenty of dust as they rounded the home turn and set sail for the judge. As they crossed the line, Night Crusader got the nod from Protester, who didn't have much luck in running, and Granbow was third. To Tamworth, and the B-grass track was in immaculate condition to hold its second meeting within a fortnight. Too Good Tudor Wall from the fancied Bosworth Ridge, and Jamingo was third.
The RSL club in Newcastle's central business district was extensively damaged during the earthquake. It was one of the first buildings to be demolished. While the club relocated to another part of the city, the site on the corner of King and Perkins Streets has stood idle for more than 2 years. New South Wales State RSL President Wal Newington today announced that an office block will be built on the site.
Well, it is purely a commercial enterprise. It's not to be seen as a club or anything like that.
The Newcastle RSL club will remain in its present location. The money it makes from leasing the office space will be given to RSL-sponsored charities. Construction will begin next month. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
$420,000 articles of mail go through the Hunter region daily. Each year, that volume increases. To meet that need, Australia Post has built a new mail centre on the outskirts of Newcastle. It houses an $800,000 sorting machine which electronically scans addresses, sorting letters into individual suburbs and towns.
It is cost effective, it's going to be more efficient, and the sorting rates will be higher, and it won't take as long to process the mail.
But for the machine to operate effectively, handwritten postcodes must be marked clearly.
If this does not occur, it may be that the article is rejected, and then will have to be taken to a manual sort or through our indexing machines.
The machine can sort 35,000 letters an hour. In that same time, a manual operator sorts around 1,500. During the next 2 weeks, the machine will be fine-tuned and officially up and running late February.
The Greater Taree Council's stand on the saltwater beach sand mining is quite clear. Last night it supported a recommendation by its Works Committee to oppose mining. The resolution will go to the state government once an inquiry into the matter is convened. Ian Wiskin of Hawks Nest-based Mineral Deposits Limited says Council's decision is not a surprise.
It wasn't unexpected. Of course, back in October, the Council wrote a report which was very deficient in its treatment of the issues. And quite frankly, that hasn't changed. So we had a fair indication of what Council's attitude would be.
Mr Wiskin has slammed the decision, accusing Council of bowing to uninformed public pressure. He says the Manning region won't be the only area affected if the proposal does not go ahead.
Not only are there 47 new jobs that won't be available in the Manning area, but unless feedstock is found for the Hawks Nest operations mineral deposits, they will have to close prematurely, and there are 150 jobs at stake down there.
Mayor Les Brown has defended Council's decision.
Saltwater to the people of the Manning area is a very special place. It's one of the loveliest recreation places that we have anywhere on the eastern seaboard of Australia. It's unique, and the general consensus of opinion was that we want to keep it that way.
Neighbourhood Watch has a record of success, especially against housebreaking and vandalism, but membership and interest in the program has also waned. Now police and the NRMA have adopted a new approach to revitalise Neighbourhood Watch. Over the next 2 years, the NRMA will allocate $500,000 to sponsor community-based crime-fighting ideas. Newcastle Police District Chief Superintendent Heinz Moller has welcomed the tactic.
Offences against property and so forth are generally on the downturn. And this is due to a number of factors, but certainly Neighbourhood Watch groups are contributing.
$50,000 has been allocated to Region North, but the NRMA says that's a small price to pay if it keeps insurance claims down.
Insurance is actually a pool operation, and it's the impact on the pool, and the less claims that come through because of crime being the instigating force, the better off everybody will be.
Community groups will apply for funding through a regional Crime Stoppers committee. Projects will be managed and coordinated by police. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Dr. Chan has spent the last 3 years investigating abnormalities of the placenta, which affect the health of the baby. Today she was awarded a research grant for more than $100,000 to continue her work.
At the moment we're just trying to understand the biochemical mechanisms behind controlling pregnancy and delivery.
The grant was made by the Government Employees Health Fund. More than 23,000 fund members contribute 50 cents per week over and above their normal health insurance contributions. Last year, $600,000 was raised and returned to health research. The theory being prevention is better than cure. This year, part of the money has been allocated to research into why babies are born prematurely.
And as a result of that, the baby is born too small. And that's very expensive in terms of neonatal health care, and also greatly increases the chance of the baby dying or having serious handicaps for the rest of its life. So it's really an important thing for us to sort out.
The entrance by-election may be over, but the Premier's high-profile campaign continues, this time at the opening of one of Australia's most advanced food plants. The facility covers more than 12,000 square metres, 1,000 of this taken up with production lines, the rest administration areas. 225 people work at the plant. That's expected to double in 2 years. The plant produces 100 tonnes of herbs, spices and sauces a day. That's the equivalent of 500 jars of bolognese sauce a minute.
From here, the products are transported to Sydney and then distributed across Australia and 9 other countries, including Japan, America and Sweden. Export earnings this year are estimated to be in excess of $20 million. That return also serves to benefit the local community.
The obvious benefits are that it's going to gainfully employ many more people within the Shire and the Central Coast generally. There is a spin-off from that indirectly because a lot of other industries are involved.
The company outgrew its Sydney site, Berkeley Vale's geographical position proving favourable. Such relocation and decentralisation of major industry is a policy state government supports.
I think this, in a way, the development of Wyong Shire's food manufacturing and general manufacturing in the last year or so is really a model of what we'd like to be able to do in various other areas.
But that won't happen immediately. For now, decentralising the manufacturing and service industries is the government's primary focus.
Newcastle's armed hold-up squad joined Mayfield detectives in a full-scale manhunt of suburbs surrounding Woodstock Street after a 19-year-old courier told police he'd been struck on the back of the head by an unidentified assailant wielding a lump of wood. The alleged attacker snatched a payroll bag containing $7,000, the weekly wages of employees at Coulter TV installations. Late yesterday, police inquiries suddenly took a dramatic turn when they re-interviewed the alleged victim after his release from John Hunter Hospital. Later, they arrested a 17-year-old youth and recovered a payroll at an address in Mayfield. The pair have both been charged with creating a public mischief, stealing and car theft. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
This year's festival will feature the street parade of last year, a host of fairground attractions with some bigger rides for the thrill seekers and more than 40 races.
We have a very large entertainment here with rides and fairground attractions. But I guess from the entertainment Saturday night must be the Johnny O'Keefe Memorial Show. And then, of course, on the river events, I would think Saturday and Sunday, but particularly Monday, I think it's going to be where the big races are going to be.
Monday's races include the RSL Strait Course Classic, the Jeff Stevenson Memorial Race and the Elgas Race. Tomorrow, 13 races will be decided from an expected field of about 70, but there's more.
And Saturday's a big day, the start of the three-day aquatic events, with the street parade commencing at 10 a.m. down Victoria Street, and of course the races starting on the river at 11 a.m.
On Sunday, the races kick off again at 9:30 with 27 events scheduled. The 1992 festival format is a little different to that of previous years, but organisers are confident it'll make for one of the best festivals yet.
What they've done this year is brought the aquatic back to mainly aquatic events on the river. It has been, previous years there's been other events associated with aquatic, but nothing to do with the aquatic.
Just before 9 o'clock, council workmen digging a hole in York Street snagged a 50mm gas line, but the trouble occurred on the opposite side of the road, where the line pulled out of a junction, sending gas spewing into the air, lifting a concrete footpath slab in the process. Dave Tredinick was in his hardware store only metres away from the break.
The backhoe operator said that we had a busted main, and so I thought, well, I better get out of there quick, so I switched the power off and cleared out and locked it all up.
Teralba Fire Brigade was on the scene quickly, and they were joined by a specialist team from Fire Brigade headquarters in Cooks Hill. The fire crews remained on standby as workmen from the natural gas company worked to cap the break in the line. Gas supplies were restored to the area about 3 hours later. Firemen warning that after a break such as today, a check should always be made for escaping gas before attempting to relight any pilot lights on water heaters. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
It's being touted as the biggest water polo tournament in the Southern Hemisphere, with some officials saying it is the biggest in the world. 107 matches will be played over the long weekend in 3 divisions, men's A and B grades and women's open division. 46 teams from all over the state are taking part, with many teams from the North Coast region also included. And talking about water, but this time on top of it, the 26th Urunga Sailing Club Regatta is being held on the Bellinger River for the next 2 days, with around 50 craft competing in 4 races. Various sailing boats are on the river, with Sabos and Manly Juniors for the younger brigade, and they are joined by lasers, NS14s and a mixture of catamarans. Today's conditions were ideal for a lazy day on the river, but everyone is hoping the breeze picks up a little bit for tomorrow. Doohan has been struggling with his game in recent times, trying to shoulder the burden of his past international career. Today against Aaron Kovac, Doohan was steady, relying on his serve and volley game to set up many points. He raced through the first set, dropping only 3 games before Kovacs mounted some challenge in the second. But Doohan steadied and was able to wrap up the match 6-3, 7-5 and will now meet Mark Hopkins of Sydney in the semis. In an all-Newcastle battle, Richard Nichols triumphed over his good mate William O'Neill, but it was a match that went right to the wire. Nichols won the first set 6-4, O'Neill took the second 6-4, but then Nichols clicked into gear, not dropping a game in the deciding third set. Nichols meets top seed Jason Karsk of Sydney in the other semi. While in the women's, Jane Taylor thrashed youngster Trudy Musgrave 6-love, 6-1 to set up a meeting in the final with Kylie Hunt, who disposed of Lee Kessel 6-1, 6-2. Excitement plus on Newcastle Harbour and the Speed Skiing Championships provided spectators with a close-up look at just how fast these skiers are being towed on today's conditions in excess of 80 miles per hour. And it was a day of keep the boat going and you would end up in the money, with many coming adrift. In the women's event, Janelle Hunt, the current Australian under-19 title holder behind Firebird, was too good for Kathy Monkman, towed by Team Crowboats, and third was Tracy Graciano behind Bloody Mary. The men's under-19 race was full of drama, with no less than 6 boats failing to finish. The winner was Brad Hughes behind Top Gun, Jamie Graciano and Marcho were second, and Steve Robinson and Bloody Mary were third.
Like thousands of other Hunter people today, 13-year-old Sam Stratton and his mother Linda made the most of the sunny weather by flocking to the beach. But Sam's fun in the surf at Bar Beach almost cost him an eye.
I caught a wave in and this surfboard just came up behind me and hit me in my eye just there.
The close shave to Sam's eye by a board rider was the final straw for Cooks Hill Surf Club members, who say competing surfers were constantly riding in between the flags all morning.
After 3 hours of persistent calls over the megaphone and rubber ducks in the waters and lifesavers swimming out to instruct these competitors in the board comp, they still didn't heed the message.
The club members say they've had a good relationship with the surfboard riders over the years, but faced with a huge Australia Day crowd on the beach, they're surprised more people weren't hurt when the board riders came in between the flags.
Yes, there could have been another injury going on today's population on the beach.
Linda Stratton is furious that her son could have lost an eye and has appealed to surfers to stay away from bathing areas.
You know, the guys should respect the younger kids. I know there's all sorts of ages out there, but those surfboards are so dangerous with the little kids around. I mean, that was so close to his eye.
Six people went fishing in a small aluminium runabout on Lake Glenbourne yesterday afternoon. At about 8 p.m, a strong wind whipped up metre-high waves, with one swamping the boat. 5 of the people clung to the partially submerged runabout, while the 6th, a 24-year-old man from Wingham, swam for help. His friends haven't seen him since. About 3 o'clock this morning, the boat was washed ashore and the 5 people raised the alarm. An intensive search by state emergency services and volunteers began at first light, but failed to find him. A scaled-down search will continue tomorrow. Karsk was seeded number 1 going into the tournament, and he was determined not to give the title away. While Doohan matched his younger opponent's skill on the court, he just couldn't find the answers to shots like this. Doohan is now a professional coach in the United States, but his vast experience couldn't match the agility and speed of Karsk. Karsk took the match in straight sets 6-4, 7-6. In the women's, Maitland's Jane Taylor went into the match favourite. While she obviously outshone her opponent, 16-year-old Kylie Hunt, she didn't have it all her own way. Taylor chose her shots carefully and was rewarded more times than not. Taylor defeated Hunt 7-5, 6-3.
The sky was the limit on the third and final day of the regatta, with a 25-man parachute drop onto the foreshore. From the heavens above to the depths below, a team of Navy divers demonstrated how they put in a day at the office with explosive effect. The 2 Navy vessels in port for the festivities attracted hundreds of visitors. As the seamen of HMAS Fremantle wrapped up in readiness to sail, they reflected on a visit full of goodwill.
Bit of work, bit of play. It's been good.
Some of the crowd opted to float back in time on William IV to a bygone era of sail and steam. For others, the attraction was the high speed and the superpowered. Crowds lined the foreshore to watch the Formula One races and water skiing competitions, with some even prepared to go out on a limb to get a glimpse of the action. The regatta's organisers have hailed the event a success, with an expanded program and huge crowds. Newcastle Lord Mayor John McNaughton says the regatta has not only been a boost to tourism, it's provided entertainment for Hunter people.
There's 85,000 at least citizens of Newcastle and the Hunter Valley have had a great weekend. With 85,000 here, the Maritime Museum deserves all the credit it can get for putting on such a marvellous festival.
Back in the 30s, when roads were nothing more than corrugated tracks covered by red dust, 18-year-old lay preacher Henry Smallman, dressed in a suit and flying goggles, set out on his motorcycle to take the gospel message to the faithful in sitting rooms, halls and churches.
They were always well attended. There was nothing else on. There was no TV or anything like that. And people used to like to gather there and talk together.
Henry's family migrated from England in 1926 to a land of opportunity, setting up an orchard at Lisarow. When he wasn't picking fruit or preaching, Henry explored the area on his new Panther motorbike. He claims to be the first motorcyclist to ride from the Central Coast to Sydney on the Pacific Highway before it was officially opened, paying a fisherman 10 shillings or about $1 to carry his machine across the unbridged Hawkesbury River. Punts were soon to ferry traffic across the river, but on landing Henry raced ahead to avoid the choking dust and mud kicked up by cars.
Used to broadside round some of those corners. But I always used to try and be the first in the gospel off the punt, you know.
Yes, yeah. It's been 50 years since Henry travelled by bike. Among the pillion passengers he gave a lift to church were his sisters, parishioners and preachers. This week he eagerly accepted an invitation to ride with motorcycle enthusiast Barry Suckling on a restored 1956 Matchless with sidecar.
Well, there you are, Henry. Would you like to come for a little ride?
Yeah, I'd love it.
Oh, there you go. This is the first time you've ever had a helmet on.
First time I've ever under these.
Not all shared his passion for motorcycles. A visiting churchman requested four-wheel transport after an exhilarating run to make it to church on time.
As we were speeding over the rough gravel road, I shouted over my shoulder to the preacher that the church steward would be annoyed if we were late. Grimly clinging onto my leather belt, he shouted back, "I'd rather be late than be dead on time."
Henry lost only one passenger, and that was on the bumpy road to Terrigal. Henry has penned his recollections in a small paperback book. He recalls how the congregation kept tabs on their dashing young preacher, listening for the unmistakable sound of his motorcycle.